Okay, so let's look at these two poems by Amiri Baraka. Really great examples of line breaks and just the power of how the way that the line is written on the page really moves the energy of the poem forward. This first one, they're both well, they're both pretty, they're very deep. This one is longer and Agony is now. So when you read it, I want you to read it according to the line break. So I'm going to read the first couple stanzas for you so you can understand what I mean. In Agony as now. I am inside someone who hates me. I look out from his eyes, smell what foul tunes come in to his breath, love his wretched women. Slits in the metal for sun, where my eyes sit turning at the cool air, the glance of light, or hard flesh rubbed against me, a woman, a man, without shadow or voice or meaning. This is the enclosure, flesh, where innocence is a weapon and abstraction, touch, not mine, or yours, if you are the soul I had and abandoned when I was blind and had my enemies carry me as a dead man, if he is beautiful or pitied. It can be pain, as now as all his flesh hurts me. It can be that, or pain, as when she ran for me into that forest, or pain, the mind, silver spiraled, whirled against the sun, higher than even old men thought God would be, or pain, and the other the yes, inside his books, his fingers, they are withered yellow flowers and were never beautiful. The yes, you will, lost souls, say beauty, beauty practiced as the tree, the slow river, a white sun in its wet sentences, or the cold men in their gale, ecstasy, flesh, or soul, the yes, their robes blown, their bowls empty, they chant in my heels, not at yours, flesh or soul, as corrupt, where the answer moves too quickly, where the God is a self after all. Cold air blown through narrow blind eyes, flesh, white hot metal glows as the day with its sun. It is a human love. I live inside, a bony skeleton. You recognize his words or simple feeling, but it has no feeling. As the metal is hot, it is not given to love. It burns the thing inside it, and that thing screams. So this poem is obviously painful to read out loud. It is forcing you, when you are reading it, to be very uncomfortable, and that is on purpose, because what the poem is about is agony. And if you think about agony, you would think about it almost you know, uh, kind of perverting the face of the person who's in pain, right? This kind of like tragedy mask is what you would think of, an agony, an unbearing, unending pain. And what the pain is that the speaker is going through, as you can see, is first person I, singular, but he is disassociated. He says, I am inside someone who hates me. And so there's two selves in this poem. There's this speaker who is I, and then there's this thing that he is describing himself as, and a thing that he's in. And in the second stanza, he talks about not just the flesh that he's in here. He talks about this, he feels like a soul or a spirit inside this man that he's in, but then the man is a machine now, it's metal. This enclosure now, the body, whether it's flesh or it's metal, it's just an enclosure. It's just where he's trapped. And these feelings of pain and trap continue throughout this poem. And if you look at the parentheses very specifically, you see that they are open and they are not closed. So there is this vulnerability. There is this wound. It's almost like a wound that is there, that is being battered and exposed to the elements. And you keep having this recognition of pain and pain and pain and pain and this unending agony. And so it really is a poem about disassociative selves, where he feels like not in tune with the body that he's in. In fact, the body that he's in, whether it's this mortal life that he's talking about, or just the flesh of his gender, or just the flesh of his age, or just a disgust of who he is at this point in life and all the things that he's done. He's talking about screaming inside. And this last image, and when you look at poems, there usually is a final image that they want you to end on. Think about Crane's Man Adrift on a Spar, where the last image is that man drowned and buried in the sea. Here we have this voice, and this voice and this sound is not soothing. It's not comfortable. It's actually screaming. So the poem is screaming. It's burning alive. It's actually something is dying in great agony at the very end of the poem. It says it has no feeling. The metal is hot. It's not given to love. There is no love in this poem. In fact, in the absence of love, we have ceremony. This is this imagery of robes blown, bowls, chanting. It's religion, but it's not love. It's religion, but it's not God. It's religion, but it's not real. And that's what he's talking about, is like this body that he's in. It's like practicing some kind of religion, but the soul is not there. The spirit is not there. And being trapped inside of this ceremony, this flesh, it is burning the thing. And what is the thing? The thing is him, that real self, whether it's the I, capital I, whether it's the soul, whether it's identity, whether it's the self, but it is this thing that is burning and screaming inside. So just a really great example of how the form follows the story that's being told, which is this intense agony of the speaker. If we look into this next poem, Legacy, it's a very different tone here. There's no agony here, but the imagery is so unbearably all over the place. And if I'm going to point out to you specifically, not only the line breaks, but also look at the verbs that he's using and the repetition of verbs and similar sounds. So in the South, sleeping against, the drugstore growling under, the trucks and stoves stumbling through and over the cluttered eyes of early mysterious night, frowning, drunk, waving, moving a hand or lash, dancing, kneeling, reaching out, letting a hand rest in shadows, squatting, to drink or pee, stretching to climb, pulling themselves onto horses near, where there was a sea, the old songs lead you to believe, riding out from this town to another where it is also black, down a road where people are asleep, towards the moon or the shadows of houses, toward the song's pretended sea. So we have a lot of repetition here. If I was to point out every ing word, it would be exactly almost like an outline of this poem. Let's look at it. Sleeping, growling, stumbling, frowning, waving, moving, letting, dancing, squatting, stretching, riding, all of these action verbs, this motion, this movement, right? Because ing is present. So all of these things are happening all at once, as if it's this contorted version. If you imagine all of these bodies at once, if each ing word had a body, one body sleeping, another body growling, another stumbling, another frowning, another dancing, another kneeling, another reaching, another letting, another squatting, another stretching, it would be this conglomeration of all of these bodies just moving in these contorted ways. And this idea of this legacy, it's his legacy of what he's inherited. And the main theme here in this poem is we're all moving, we're all doing these things, we're all very actively alive, yes? But what's happening here is right in the middle. I had a very good mentor tell me, Erica, if you don't know what's happening in a poem, look at the middle. And in the middle here is the squatting and the stretching, and here in these parentheses is leading you to some kind of truth in the poem. Stretching to climb, pulling themselves onto horses near where there was sea, the old songs lead you to believe. This is the first address. We don't see any address in the poem except in that middle, that you. And it's this you, the inheritor of this legacy, the speaker of the poem, was led to believe there was some kind of sea that these songs were about. There was some kind of story. There was some kind of legacy that was being inherited. There's some kind of history for these people that are involved in this poem. But the speaker is saying, no, it's a lie. It's a pretended sea. It's a shadow. It's not the truth. It's the moon. It's not the sun. It's all a lie. It's pretend. And so the thing that I see similar here with Baraka's poem, the themes in these two poems, is this idea about a lie. That the body is a lie, our history is a lie. And the things that we grapple with as human beings is fighting the lie, living outside of the shadow. And sometimes that feels very ugly, uncomfortable, and almost like contorted and gross disfigurement. I've been looking for that word for this whole time. Disfigurement of the self in order to reach what is real.